Viva la France.
Now dig on this.
Oui, and welcome to Classic Movie Banter.
Bonjour.
Be our guest. Welcome to Classic Movie Banter. You know, that podcast where me, that one Aussie guy, Brenton, and that other Aussie guy, Nathan,
Croissant.
we talk about films that are 20 years or older, or in this case...
No, exactly 20 years. You bloody nailed it, mate.
And we tell you if they're still worth watching today or not, and more importantly, if they're worth getting all those friends around, probably on a Thursday night if you're all free, and having a little old watcheroo. Get some popcorn, get some snails, get some cognac.
Escargot. Just like, I would love it if all your French friends unironically just had like French food for when they watch movies. Like they don't bother with popcorn. They're like, we will eat the snail.
I feel like I'm being a bit stereotypical, but at the same time, the movie we're talking about today I feel is a bit stereotypical as well.
Isn't it though?
Hits some tropes and some stereotypes. So what film could we possibly talking about that is 20 years or older?
Well, let me give the listeners some backstory here. So, you know, this year we decided, to listen to you listeners more, and we want to take suggestions that you guys say. And so Sophie wrote into the show and she said, hey, can you guys do some more foreign films? I want to know what some of the best ones are to watch, right? So you and I sat down, Brenton. Thanks, Sophie, for running in, by the way. If you want to get in touch, send us an email. Anyway, Sophie wrote into us, so I'm like, great. Brenton, what are some foreign films you and I have not yet reviewed? And top of our list was Amélie. And the reason the French film Amélie is on top of our list is for a couple of reasons. One, it's like the highest grossing French film, I think, still in the world. Like, I think globally. I think it's made the most money. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, man. And this came out like 20 years ago. So there's that. Two, Brent and I went to the same high school. And so I don't know if you recall this, Brenton, but you probably do. But the poster for this film was like plastered outside like one of the French classrooms for like years. And I don't think you and I had any context for this movie besides the poster, correct?
Yeah, totally. The poster, I feel like this poster has followed me around for years.
Yeah.
I saw
it's
it
everywhere,
like, obviously
man.
It was on that classroom and it was gathering dust. It looked a bit moldy, but it was always
it's probably
there.
bought when the film came out.
But I also remember walking into here's a blast from the past, but
here we
we're
go.
kind of a retro podcast, I guess. I went into a Blockbuster.
Oh, beautiful, mate.
And my local one on the Gold Coast back in the day had this copy of Amélie that was always like kind of on one of the front stands, which I think was like obviously like an international film section.
Right. Yeah.
And so obviously Amelie's just like front and center all the time.
Yeah, and when that face is looking at you on the box art, you can't help but look back.
I think I'll reserve kind of what I used to think this movie was based on the poster for the poster chat.
Yeah.
So I'll save it for then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why we're talking about it. So yeah, please write in with any suggestions for more foreign films if you want us to do that, if you like the content today. And if you don't, obviously don't suggest those. But anyway.
Suggest something better. But here we are, Brent, and here we are. We've gone to Paris and, we're standing on top of the Eiffel Tower. It's a high fall, so be careful, mate. Don't stand too close to the edge.
Oh, there's no protective fencing on top of the Eiffel Tower. Like, you gotta stay well inside.
No, obviously not.
Nathan, just a few quick facts.
Amélie
was released. Was obviously released in 2001 in France.
Where?
I feel like it had an international release the year after, but that's okay.
That's right. People saw it eventually.
On top of that, it was directed by Nathan. This is where I've got to admit something.
Oh, okay.
If we're going to talk about the French experts on the show, it's definitely you. Like, you are obviously quite French.
Just because I love a good pain au chocolat doesn't mean I'm a French expert, mate. Stop it.
Oh, settle down there, mate. But it's so if I butcher this name, please forgive me, listeners, as well as and especially Nathan. So it's Jean-Pierre, which is
Perfect, yeah.
that makes sense, and then it's Jeunet, which is Jeunet.
Yeah, Jeunet. That's it. Mate, you bloody nailed it. Well done.
All
Look
right,
at you,
sweet.
mate.
I'm just checking.
You've been to Paris.
Yeah, because when I could have opened the show and I could have said, today we're reviewing that French movie, Amélie.
Amélie, there she goes. Watch her. She's left the country. Amélie, come back here.
Bloody hell, I loved Amélie. That was a bloody corker.
That would be... Oh, I just thought of a great special... Could I throw in an extra special segment right here and now that we can do later on?
Absolutely.
Can we invent the special segment, should there be an Australian version of this movie?
Yes, I love this segment. Are we going to do it now? Or are we going to
Let's not do it right now. Let's do it when we get to special segments. Brenton, you remind me.
Sounds good.
Or listeners, you remind us if we've forgotten. But we're going to do it when the special segments rock up.
Perfect. Let's do it. But for now,
until then.
Speaking of things we're doing, Nathan, could you please pitch me Amélie?
Can you pitch me the movie? All right, well, obviously you've just gone off your Qantas flight here in Paris, so let's go up to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Look at the view, Brenton. Look at where we are. We're in Paris, the city of love. No, Brenton, keep your distance. All right, now look at the view. And see in the distance that kind of white chapel kind of thing? That's...
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. No, mate. Not the ruins of Notre Dame. Point a little bit further up. Okay, there we go. Yeah. That's it. So,
yes.
That is Montmartre. And that is a very famous, building in Paris. And you know what, Brenton? I'm so in love with this building and this area of Montmartre. I reckon we should make a whole film based on this one little suburb. And we're going to call it Amélie. Now, Brenton, have you seen the Simpsons episode where a bunch of local citizens make some short films?
It's not springing to mind.
Oh, Moleman gets kicked in the nuts by a football, Barney says he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Springfield makes a bunch of short films. Okay, what if we did that, but in the suburb of Montmartre? Where, in Paris, we watch all these different French people kind of fucking about with their lives and, just getting up to, just getting up to some antics and whatnot. And in the middle of it, Brenton, is this woman, Amélie. She's an introvert. She's had a very colourful life, and she wants to stop being an introvert, Brenton, don't we all? She wants to kind of crack out of her shell and find some love and get to know her neighbours,
Yeah, she's like us a few years ago, but we decided to fix that by starting a podcast.
The most introverted activity of all. So rather than start a podcast since it's the year 2001, Amélie decided not to do that. And actually, I think it's set in the late 90s from memory. 97? So yeah, it is. She's going around Paris. She's in a color saturated version of it, and oh boy, is she's meddling in things that she'd never meddled before, and she's hooking up neighbors. She's befriending old people. She's all just, dipping her fingers in all sorts of pies. So that's Amélie. She's getting to know her city of Paris.
Nathan, by the way you describe this, I'm not sure if it's a horror film or or a good time.
It's allegedly a comedy. So it's French people being very silly. And oh boy, is it French. The language is French. The city is French. The character language is French. That's the movie. It's all French, mate.
The subtitles are even French. Everything's French.
Thankfully not. It would be too French, frankly. So here we are. We're enamored with France and this nation. And yeah, what more can you say? Vive la France. Oh, that'd be good for title talk. Actually, be a great title. But anyway, that's Amélie.
Okay, so you say that there's shenanigans going on,
yes,
basically, and you said Amélie's fucking about with the various locals,
more or less, mate.
Is this in a positive light? Is she trying to I don't know, be a good member, or is she?
She's very shy, right? So she's like, okay, feck, I'm Amélie and I'm shy. How do I stop being shy? So she's like, you know what? All these other French fuckers who live around me, they're all pretty shy too. Or they're all facing issues, right? If I can help them overcome their issues, by golly, I'll probably overcome my issues. So, help them to help me to help you, that kind of thing. So
okay.
It's for the good. It's for the greater good.
Okay, I gotcha. As long as she means well, I was just checking.
She does mean well.
It sounded like this was like bloody Hannibal Lecter's origin story or something.
I mean, I wish that would be great. I would absolutely love Jodie Foster to rock up, but sadly no. It's we're having a day in the life of Paris, mate. We're watching people work at market stalls. We're watching some creepy old fucker film his neighbors through a window. It's French, mate. Get around it.
Okay, I'll take your word for it and I'll give it a watch. Well, look at that. I've already watched it. Nathan, now comes that point in the show where I ask you, what the frickety frack did you think of the film? So, Nathan, thoughts on Amélie? What's going on in that brain of yours? Because I'm dying to know.
You know what, Brenton? You know what? I hyped up this movie a little bit because, we've seen this poster for years. And you know what? Posters rarely stick with me at the end of the day, but this fucker did. Because people probably know this poster more than the movie because it's just Amélie staring at you with some weird ass fucking look like she just robbed a bank or something, right?
Well, Well, I'd like to continue on that thought and say that not only was the poster obviously quite distinct, and yes, I did have the thought of the robbery as well, and the SWAT team coming in to save the day. But all I hear about this movie is how good it is.
Universal praise.
Exactly. That I've never heard a bad word spoken about.
Let me tell you a fucking story, all right? I've traveled sometimes. And like, whenever I do, and I bump into French people, they're always like, oh, you know French, Nathan. Here I am, a French person. Let's talk about things we share in common. You must love French cinema. And I'm like, oh, I've seen a handful of French films for sure. What a good time. And the first fucking film they always mention is Amélie, right? And they're like, oh, j'adore Amélie. I love Amélie. And they're like, you must love Amélie. And every fucking time they mention this, I'm like, okay, look, I love French cinema, but I haven't seen Amélie. And they proceed to slap me across the face going, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, watch Amélie. And they're like, okay, I will.
Did they suddenly drop their French language as well and just go straight into English and say,
They drop the pretense.
what the fuck is wrong
They're
with
like,
you?
he is not one of us. He does not know Amélie. They cast me out.
No accent. The way you did it was perfect. They just drop everything. Like, there's no accent. There's nothing. It's just like, what the fuck is wrong?
I'm like, I've seen Ratatouille. They're like, that is not French. And they bloody boot me out of the room. So Brenton, here I am, hoping to be finally accepted by the French community by watching renowned film Amélie. So here we are, Brenton, having seen renowned film Amélie.
Just get into it, dude. Rip off the Band-Aid.
Like,
what do you think?
what the fuck is this movie? Like this is just like... like I watched this. Look, I need to process this, Brenton, because like I watched this maybe like I watched it at the start of the week, so I've actually had some time to fucking think about this, and I am like equally confused as I am now as I was at the start of this, and I feel like I'm gonna like it more over time. I feel like I'm going to think about it more and I'm going to be like, oh, I get it. But this is a difficult film, Brenton. Where are you sitting, mate? Like, did you like it? Was it a hot mess? Like, did you dislike it? Like,
it's not a hot mess. I got a few things to say. Like,
oh, good.
I thought that you were going to kind of clear my point of view, but it sounds like you're just as fucking confused as me. So let's get into it.
Because confused is the right verb, man. Like,
going into this, I wasn't sure what the tone was going to be. I just knew, like, you know, obviously it was a French film, it was very famous.
We knew nothing going in.
When everyone loves it, I was like expecting something that was feel good, and I think that's the intent, to make something that's like super feel good.
Yeah.
And I would say that it probably succeeds on that level, you know, in a lot of ways. So like, this movie is one of those movies that I think was designed in a way, you know, if you're feeling down and you watch this movie, it's meant to pick you back up again. It's meant to pick you back up again and set you on the right path and get you out in the world and do some good. That's the idea, right? So yeah, I think it largely succeeds on that premise, but there's just some weird shit in it at the same time.
Yeah, it makes you finally feel better, but it makes you feel better by the end of it because you've stopped watching the movie.
What a thing to say. But yeah, I think structurally it's really kind of interesting. I think like the editing's kind of awesome. I think that obviously they've done a lot of work with the colors in it, and there's various reasons why they've...
The editor is very excited to have discovered color correction in 2001. I'll tell you that.
Exactly, yeah. No, but I think that obviously that's for a reason. It's meant to evoke, you know, the artwork and whatnot that's in the film. Obviously, I think the leading performance is pretty good from the actress that plays Amélie.
Yeah, it's Lady Jesus. There she is.
Yeah, I think...
From Da Vinci Code herself, Audrey Tautou. Lady Jesus, she's back.
Yeah, there's a lot of good going on. Where I'm confused is this.
Yes.
It's one of the... So, because it's a foreign movie, and I don't want to shit on it because, like, I have to read subtitles, but I'm going to shit on it because I have to read subtitles. This is my first criticism. I would love to be like you, Nathan, and to understand the French language, because the editing in this at some points is like viscerally fast. Like, it's so fast. You're like, you know, you're doing...
Very choppy, yeah.
And it's meant to be so, but it's meant to also because, like, the images move fast. So when you stop on an image, like, you can kind of go, oh, that's nice and that's really pretty. But I can never, like, understand the filmmaker's intention in that point of view, because I've got to read fucking subtitles the whole time when, like, the frame, like, the shots...
And this is a dialogue-heavy film. Like, there is a lot of reading. Like,
I also got the feeling that the subtitles, I don't know, the translation I was watching, that there was some lost in translation moments.
Yeah, man.
Like, it wasn't bad, but like there was some sentences I was like, oh.
A lot of the film's humor comes from randomness and from being quirky by being random. It's like, this is bloody Amélie, she used to collect raccoons, but then, one decided to make love with a ferret, and now here she is. Like just like random shit. Like
yeah,
and you're like, is this what they're trying to say in French?
yeah, totally. But I don't mind that. I understood that it was trying to be a bit. It was being a bit strange because it sets up that Amélie has a visceral imagination.
Yes,
and she because she was so introverted and so lonely, like her imagination was her key to the world, and so like shit gets weird sometimes. Apparently, like and you're like, oh yeah, cool. And shit does get weird at some points.
It gets very weird.
I don't mind that. I just think as well, the other thing I'd like to probably... It's on one hand, I want to praise it, but on the other hand, I want to criticize it. One, I like that this movie's like basically 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's well paced.
It's well paced. But the format is interesting. Like you said, you mentioned at the start, this is like a bunch of short films that are put together. Like, this could have just been a television series about some girl that just goes around and like tries to do good and just meddles with people's lives and,
Amélie in Paris, like Emily in Paris.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I like the character enough, but I feel like it doesn't earn where we leave this character.
No, and also it's very interesting for an introverted character to be so hyper as a movie. Normally with like introverted characters traditionally in cinema, not that you don't have to do this, but like normally it gives those characters like quiet moments, and we normally kind of it does like this is one of those fucking annoying movies that tells, not shows. It just tells us that Amélie is like isolated. It tells us all these character motivations. Like there's narration in this movie, and like it just tells and tells and tells, and like it doesn't use the cinema to its fullest power to kind of visually show that, and so it kind of sacrifices these quiet moments for the sake of being random and quirky and going, Paris is a crazy place, and like Amelie's just trying to bloody find her way through the city, and it's like it just doesn't, the mood of the movie doesn't match the mood of its protagonist, who's deeply entrenched in depression because she wants to find some connection to these people.
Yeah, see, I think you were kind of hitting gold on the fact though, like I like that it doesn't do that. I like that it doesn't go, I guess, like like for me, like I totally agree with you. I think it's doing the opposite, but I think it might be doing the opposite for a reason. So I don't mind that, and I think it's successful in part, but don't know if I'd necessarily watch this again.
Yeah, I feel like I would like it more if I did watch it again. I feel like I'd understand it more. I feel like this is one of those movies you have to rewatch to really get it, because there's a lot going on in a first watch, man.
But I feel like at the same time that the people that love this movie saw this and it like changed their lives. You know
Probably,
what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like they watched it once and were like, holy shit, that just made me feel so good. And that I could, I'm Amélie. I'm this person,
Well, that's the thing, maybe. Maybe that's where you and I fall flat, because, like, we both run a podcast. We're not exactly introverted ourselves. And I think this is probably one of the best films I've seen that gives an insider to the introverted experience.
I agree. I think that's, totally. I totally think it nails that.
And one thing I really love about it is that Amélie fucking struggles to like overcome her introvertedness. Like we see her try like 8 times to try and just do this one thing, and she just keeps falling flat on her face because like just herself gets in the way. And like I remember feeling so frustrated with the movie, being like, oh, why can't she just do this one bloody goal? And I'm like, oh wait, no, that's the point. Like we're meant to see her fail repeatedly, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Totally.
So I respect the film for that, and like I love Amélie's character arc. I think it's fantastic throughout this movie.
Yeah.
But everything else that complements it is just so completely incongruent. It just doesn't echo the wider theme.
This is my next thing. So Amélie as a character is great, right?
Yes.
We like Amélie.
The titular character. They do her right. Yeah.
Whether or not we like the structure and whatnot, and what's going on, I think is because the side characters aren't as strong.
No.
The side characters are kind of like, there's a few of them that you're like, oh, I like this story.
They're doing something with some of them, like...
Yeah, and there's other stories that I'm just like, meh.
Yeah.
That didn't need to be in the movie.
Do you want to name names? Are there any characters you're like, I don't give a shit about this?
Well, for instance, okay, so the first thing she really does is like, there's this, I don't want to spoil it completely, but there's the owner of said box, right? That has this moment. And I liked that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I thought that was, wow, that was really, really strong. And then, we kind of follow up with a few other ones that I was just kind of left feeling a bit lukewarm on. You know what I mean? That I was just like, well, it's like, we're meant to invest in this relationship, for instance, right? Oh,
Jesus. The cafe relationship I had no patience for.
I just don't care about either of them. I don't care what Amelie's seeing, like, to be honest. I'm just like, yeah, okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's like...
Sorry, I'm trying to be vague as well.
Yeah, I know. It's hard because there are spoilers involved with this. I guess the one real issue with these side characters, right, is that for a lot of the movie, we don't really know what the overall goal of the movie is per se, except for Amélie just trying to help people. And we don't really find that until maybe like 40 minutes in. So it takes a while for you to realize that the film kind of heads in a romantic direction, that this is kind of a movie about love for a bunch of different characters, whether it's about them loving themselves or finding love with someone else. And it's pretty much evenly split as to who picks what. So like, if I knew that going in, maybe I'd have a little bit more patience for it, going, oh, okay, no, the movie wants us to invest in all these different relationships. But when you realize that it's only really Amelie's that counts, that it kind of makes you just drop everything else. Because like, when it comes to like the shopkeeper with the fruit, and when it comes to the old man with the camera, I'm just like, you're just all random fuckers. It's just like,
I love how you keep mentioning the old man with the camera, because of course you do. Like, fucking hell. Like, what a time he was.
And Jesus, and also, this is the most French bloody thing I've seen. Like, by the way, I'm going to say a lot of things are French this episode. Little PSA. I promise I'm not trying to be stereotypical or racist against the French, but I'm just saying some things they are doing are French.
Here's the thing. I think that this is, like, in a lot of ways, being stereotypically French.
It is. It's propagating a very French image.
You're like, wow, this is exactly what I think, I've never been to France, but this is exactly what I think like what France would be like.
Every fucking time Amélie walks into a room, everyone offers her wine. I'm like, come on, people.
But here's the thing. At the same time, I think that some of the characters have good depth and surpass their stereotypical frame.
Later on, yeah, but boy, do you have to run a marathon to get there.
But others don't. Others are just, he's stereotypical Frenchie, and you're like, really? I don't know. These other characters were so strong. Why do we have to spend time with you?
I know. It's just like it's like there are arcs that are introduced that don't really go anywhere, like with her and her father, or like with the woman and getting her love letter from her husband who's estranged, like stuff like that. It's just like you're just like, why is this like? It just feels random for the sake of being random, and I feel like so much this director is trying to be like Wes Anderson, but like a French kind of like quirkier version of Wes Anderson, if such a thing were possible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good segue. So let's get into the filmmaking. So obviously, I've spoken about the editing briefly, and I feel like I couldn't appreciate it as much because of the subtitle issue, which was a shame because I think what they're doing is really, really great.
But by the way, this is the first time you and I have ever mentioned subtitles. We've reviewed a bunch of different foreign films, so like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's not the subtitles I have the issue with. It's the fact that I can't enjoy the film at its, I guess, peak because the film editing is so fast paced, and it's done that for a reason. I think I would love it.
Princess Mononoke was fast, but we didn't have to pause the movie just to read every fucking sentence.
But that's it. And I feel like I just couldn't appreciate the filmmaking because I was reading fucking subtitles and it was really pissing me off.
Yes.
Like, to be perfectly honest. Like, and it wasn't like, I gotta be honest.
It's because they were in French, but had to translate on the spot.
It just detracted my experience.
Shit. What's the English word for croissant?
Yeah.
I just like the thought of like you like with like a really thick French dictionary in front of you, in front of like the TV, just frantically flipping between pages like, shit. What are they on about?
I guess the frustration with that though was that the visuals are just so striking and kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
I was annoyed that I didn't get to enjoy it as I probably would like to. So that's something else I'd like to compliment, is that like obviously we've talked about the colors, but the cinematography is quite good.
Yeah, it's well shot.
The editing, like I said, is really good. It's the music's quite French, but it suits the vibe of what's going on.
Yeah, the music's fine.
It feels like you're taking a holiday almost in Paris.
Wait, you're just waiting for Owen Wilson to stumble on by, being like, oh, wow, look at Paris.
Wow.
There's Ernest Hemingway. Wow. That'd be so fucking funny. Amelie's just sprinted down the street and bumps into Owen Wilson. I'd love it.
Here's a tangent for you, Nathan. It's a question, really.
Yeah.
It stems from this one question, because obviously you chose during your schooling to invest in the French lifestyle, invest in the language, invest in the culture. So this presents quite an idyllic view of France, of the French. This is the thing for me. France, it's never quite appealed to me.
Right.
For whatever reason. If I did some deep meditation, I could probably put...
If I entered a real deep mind state, I could tolerate going to Paris.
No, I mean like to figure out why I'm not like...
Right, why you're not enamored with the city.
Yeah, everyone seems to fucking love Paris. And I'm just I've never been, but I don't really get it. Maybe I have to go to get it, but I don't really want to go. So can you pitch me Paris? All
right, I'll pitch you the city of Paris. One of the most visited cities in the world. Oh, why won't you visit it?
Can you talk about what attracts you to this culture, to this country, to this city?
Look, I've been around Europe a little bit, and like, I've been a handful of the capital cities in Europe and all that kind of stuff, and Paris is my favorite. And like, I think the reason I love Paris, and it has nothing to do with the fact I learned French. It's like, as a city, it's kind of the same. Okay, we've both been to New York, and like, there's something about New York that's almost really difficult to articulate. It's like something that you get when you get there, and there's an energy that you feel. Paris feels so different to New York. Paris, when you walk around, at least in the left bank, because also it's a huge fucking city. There's lots of different suburbs. You know, it's like trying to say Coolangatta is like Narang. It's like they're both on the Gold Coast, but they're not the same thing.
Great reference.
Yeah,
everyone's gonna get that one.
Yeah. So but you know what I mean? Like, but that's the thing. Like, with at least for me, like walking around Paris, you feel more creative. You feel more artistic. You feel like you're part of something bigger. Like you walk around and you feel this romanticism that is just so absent from the rest of the world. Like, and it's not, and like, you know, Vienna arguably is the city of love, but I think what Paris does better than Vienna is that it has, like, the French are very stubborn in a way, right? They're very known for being stubborn, and they're being very thorough people. You know, we got these great philosophers from France. You know, they're very big thinkers, the French people. So like, when you walk around the streets of Paris, it's not uncommon just to see people passionately engaged in conversation, and really like people really stop you on the street if you're local, and like really get the time of day from you. There's a deep community that you just can't shake there. And I don't know, it's almost like walking around an old university, but imagine the whole city's like that. Like, it's akin to kind of like when you first go to Edinburgh. But then also it's accompanied by this like, smooth language, mate. And this amazing, I sound like Rumley from Ratatouille now. I'm just going to start like biting into some cheese. But I don't know, man. Like, again, you kind of have to be there to feel it. And like, and this movie in many ways is a love letter to Paris. Yeah. And also an area of Paris that actually isn't that nice. If you ever go to Montmartre, it's like on the right side of Paris, and it's like, it's not that nice of a suburb. Like, especially today. Yeah. So like, I don't know. It's not the Compton of Paris, but it's certainly like this underground. There's this real kind of edge art movement that's always going on there. So if you're with people that are used to meeting some very weird, okay, here's the thing: when you're in the area of Paris that Amélie is in, there's a lot of weird people there, and there's like, as in like, just like they've all got weird stories, and they're all kind of left to center. So in a way, this film is a perfect reflection of that. So I can see why, you know, the filmmaker chose to do this. But again, don't think Montmartre is Paris. Like, it's just one kind of slice of it. I don't know if any of that made sense.
I don't know, man. I like, coming into this episode, I really wanted to pick your brains about this, because I need to go, because I don't necessarily get it yet.
But here's the thing. I don't think this is the movie that introduces you to Paris, because it's like...
No, I'm not saying the movie needs to necessarily. I think that the movie gave a good insight, like you said, into a part of Paris and like a community, basically. It's like, which is fine. And it's like it's a community, like you said, that is left of center and whatnot. But my bigger question to that is, because obviously everyone talks about this as like the French movie, that I'm like, okay, so what is about France? And what is about this city and this language and this culture that you love? Because like, I've never actually had this conversation with you. Like, this is a massive part of your life, dude. We've never really talked about it. Yeah. Well,
I don't know. When I learned, okay, here's the reason I learned French, back in the private school that you and I went to, we had 3 languages that we could choose, right? We had Chinese, Japanese, and French. And I'm like, and little 12-year-old Nath was like, I can't believe I'm saying this on air, but like 12-year-old Nath at the time, genuinely, I thought, which one will get me girls? Like, out of the 3, I thought, oh, well, French probably sounds the sexiest. And like, when you're 12 as well, you're doing anything to talk to a girl at that point. So I'm like, oh, I'll learn French.
It's to be fair, it's a heck of a language in the sense of, because the other 2 language options we had were Japanese and Chinese at the school we went to. Unfortunately, there was no Latin or anything like that. But Nathan, or Spanish even. But Nathan, here's the thing. What you said about the language is totally spot on. When you hear the language, it's like, it's so fluent, it's so pretty. It's like the musical term legato. It's just like, ooh, and it just kind of washes over you. It's smooth.
Like a
it's
French
long and
bakery,
smooth,
man. Like,
like a croissant before it's been like rolled up. You know what I mean? Like the croissant when they roll it up, the pastry. Ooh, but here's the thing. Obviously, I didn't take French in school. Nathan, let me tell you, the language I chose was not fluent and long. Let me tell you that much, mate. It's not long and smooth. It's like, sorry, fluent is the right word. It's not long and smooth. It's something else.
But here's the thing, like, when it came to like options as well, French was the most international, right? Because only the Japanese speak, Japanese, and only the Chinese speak Chinese. Whereas like French, like, they're the colonizers. So much of the world spoke French.
It's all over Europe. It's on bloody what's New Caledonia?
They got Africa, man. Like,
yeah.
Your neighbor's probably French. Look out the window. So like, they're bloody everywhere. And like, it's
look out the window. You'll probably see some French person if you just look out your window. Oh, wait, you're right. Oh, they're breaking in. No.
When Breton started Les Mis, he was like, oh, finally my people. So it was So yeah, so like, I don't know. I was attracted to the language and there's cool French people out there, man. It's like, and some of my favorite films are French. You know, I love The Untouchables. I love I Lost My Body. But one of my favorite films ever is Amour, which I just can't stop raving about.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fucking excellent. So like going into this one here, going into Amélie, I'm like, maybe because like the English-speaking world only knows maybe like 10 French films at best. So maybe Amélie does kind of rank. And it's probably the most accessible, but like, honestly, there's better shit out there, man, when it comes to French cinema.
I would say you're right. I think there's better stuff out there, but at the same time, my biggest positive I took away from this is what I kind of started my thoughts with, which is I think this movie is still quite a pick-me-up, you know what I mean? Like at the end of this movie, I was like, oh, I feel like I've come a long way and I feel like really good to take on the world. Like that's great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling of the yucky feeling linked to some of the criticisms I had towards this movie. Like I wasn't fully satisfied, but I was satisfied enough. There's other movies I'd probably watch for a feel-good time, but like I said, I still think this is serviceable in that regard, and I get why people love it.
Yeah.
I just don't love it as much. I still like it, but like you said, there's better stuff out there.
Here's the thing as well. It took me a while to work out what this movie was actually about. And like there's a line at the end of the movie that it finally nailed it on the coffin for me. And I do want to say it in the non-spoilers, because there's a character in the cafe at the end who says, life is a long rehearsal for a show that will never play. And that was when it clicked for me, when I'm like, oh, this movie is about having these dreams and having these goals and having these things and kind of getting lost on the way. And that's kind of what life is. Like, it's kind of just living between here and there. And like, there is always going to be just there and never here, if that makes sense. And like, and Audrey is making peace with that. And she's trying to get people who are here to there. And I respect the film for that. And I do think there is a thesis to it, but Christ, does it take too long to get there.
See, I don't mind that. Like, I love the opening of this movie, and and you're right, the whole point is that it's got to find its way before it kind of reveals its goods. You know what I mean? Like,
which kind of is reflective of the theme as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it nails that. Like, it's nailing what it's setting out to do, like I said initially. It's just, I feel that there was some detracting elements that detracted from my personal experience with the film. And but like you said, I still really respect it, and I like it. I still really like it. And is it worth a watch?
Yeah, let's rate it.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
You go first. I'm still undecided, sorry.
It's really tricky for me, man. Like, I don't know. I do want to give the film props with like, you know, getting to understand the introverted, because this probably is the best I've seen it do that. So like, it is tough, man. Would I recommend this to my mates on a Thursday? Probably not, because also here's the thing, you have to pay attention, man. Like, this is a film that, especially if you don't speak French, you have a novel to read. Like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of characters. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, it's a little bit purely subjectively, it's a little bit too irreverent for me. I'm so used to the French people make great comedies and great dramas, but I'm kind of used to the drama side of things. So like, I don't know, I was kind of hoping for this film to have a little bit more weight, and like, I don't know, like most of the movies on this show, it's the screenplay that always kind of chips away for me, whether I give my thumb up or down. I kind of want to say, you know what, when I finished it, I was going to say no, especially not as an introduction to French cinema. Like, watch The Untouchables. Watch them more.
Watch Mr. Bean's Holiday. I mean, like,
watch
seriously.
Mr. Bean's Holiday. That's a great movie, mate. It's got Willem Dafoe. It's set in France. It's great. It's unironically excellent. It's so fucking good. Oh, it saddens me that we have to wait another 6 fucking years before we get to talk about Mr. Bean's Holiday, because it's so fucking excellent. Oh,
hey, we could probably talk about the Bean movie, which is the one where he goes to fucking LA.
Yeah, it's a guy like the Mona Lisa or whatever it is, but like, nah, I want to talk about Mr. Bean's Holiday. It's so fucking good, man. Oh, I love Mr. Bean's Holiday. Just every scene is iconic in that movie, man. Like, oh. That's a good French movie. Just watch that with a French dub. That's what you should be watching instead.
Its representation of Cannes is probably the funniest thing like ever. It's so...
They all sing on the beach at the end. It's what they all do.
It's so funny, dude. Like, man. And also just like the whole like film festival part with Willem Dafoe's film is perhaps one of just the greatest moments ever. Like,
it's just so funny.
Yeah, there's so many, yeah, you're so right. There's so many iconic moments in that film. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the iconic film Amélie.
Yeah.
Would I give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Yeah, it's a hard one, because I walked away from this still not knowing whether it was a thumbs up or thumbs down, but I knew I liked it. So I might stick with that and give it its due and give it a thumbs up. But here's the thing. It depends who I'm recommending it to. Because my friends, if I'm going to be like, you know, friends and fam, let's pop on a movie for a movie night, I'm not going to put on this movie. It's just not going to happen.
Unless like, you do an exchange to France. You're like, oh, hello, French fam. Let's watch this one.
But funnily enough, Nathan, the person I'd recommend this film to is actually the only person I can think of is you. So, and you don't know who to recommend it to either. Or if you
I've got French friends, but honestly, like, Australian people don't just watch Australian films. French people don't just watch French films. It's like,
no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when I watch this, I was like, who do I know that would appreciate this? And you spring to mind. Like,
but like, honestly, like, even if you like the French language or you're in love with Paris, like, I don't know, watch Ratatouille if you want to see, like, watch Midnight in Paris. If you want to see Love Letters to Paris, man, it's a love letter to Paris, but I don't know. I feel like this is more about the people than the city, to be honest with you. Like,
yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. It's about that community.
Yeah, so like, this movie could be set anywhere. Like, yes, I'm baffled there hasn't been more adaptations done like Italy or like Germany or something like that, because it could work.
Yeah,
but I haven't forgotten our little Australian special segment, Brenton. It's coming up, so until then, we should probably spoil this movie.
Wait, what do we rate it? I'm still confused.
Oh,
did you give it a
my
thumbs
thumb
up
was
or a
down,
thumbs
man.
down?
My thumb was down. I said fuck it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it respect, and I'll give it a thumbs up so that we meet in the middle, because I'm probably, I don't know, like, I still don't know, and I feel like if we have one thumb up, one thumb down, I'm kind of happy with that. Can we agree on that?
I guess we can agree to disagree. Just what a very diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
We're at the French embassy in Sydney. We're like, please, we just want a visa. We like Amélie. We promise.
Let's spoil the shit out of this one.
Oh, I'm ready, man.
You spoiled it.
What?
The movie.
Oh. So I kind of want to start at the start. I really like how we were introduced to, I think this film did the whole introduction to like this person's whole life really well. Like, a lot of other movies do a similar type of thing of like editing of like, oh, let's try and show the childhood up to like now, right?
Yeah.
And like all the backstory, right? I think this movie did it really well, where it was really well paced. It was in like very creatively put together, edited. There was some good transitions and whatnot. And in terms of the tone, it was kind of establishing, this weird vibe going on and establishing her imagination. Not making light of the tragedy that has obviously befallen this person.
Yeah.
But still doing it in a way that I guess was tasteful and not getting stuck in the depths of that.
But are you meant to laugh? Because when when her mother dies from someone falling on top of her, I'm like, is this meant to be funny? Like,
I think it was just a way of not giving levity to the moment, but just...
Because it feels like it's trying to be a comedy.
I feel like it was trying to give an impact, but in a short amount of time. And that's what I feel like a lot of this movie tries to do. It's like...
It's ambitious, a kind of critic would say.
Yeah, it's like, how do we give the impact... That's such a bad... I forgive the pun. How do we give the impact of this moment without getting stuck in the tragedy of it? Because every other film that does these openings gets stuck in whatever fucking thing happened to the kid, right? That was awful. And granted, it's awful, but we're stuck in it for like at least 20 minutes. Like, case in point, like fucking Forrest Gump takes like 40 minutes before he becomes like Tom Hanks. You know what I mean? Like,
but I like Child Forrest in that movie, to be honest with you.
I do too. But my point is that,
I love Sally Field. You're a smart boy, Forrest. Just like, as he gets taught he's dumb, just walking out the office. So
I remember watching that film as a kid, actually, and the whole bit where she, like, it kind of went over my head as a kid, like, not as a super young kid, but I was probably like, I don't know, 8 to 10 or something. And I was watching this movie and there's the scene where like she goes to the school principal and he's like, is there Mr. Gump? Mrs. Gump, and then like the next scene, like, they're clearly having sex and Forrest is like out on the porch, like, listening to him grind and whatnot, and like I was like, oh, I don't get that, but as an adult I was like, holy shit, like that is just like, I
know she sleeps with them to keep Forrest in school. You're just like, geez, Sally Field, like they really do like you.
And then like he comes out of the house like with his little washcloth thing and he's like, your mother sure does care about your education, son. You don't talk much, do you? And then he starts like imitating his sex noises and you're like, oh jeez.
Oh, yeah, right.
oh geez, little Forrest. Yeah, it's never really touched on again, is it? It's kind of brushed over the fact that she does that.
And then like the next scene, he's like having a chat with Elvis in like the guest bedroom. You're just like, what is this kid being exposed to? It's like I reckon him and Child Amélie would get along quite well. Just like,
I do too. Speaking of which, going back to the initial impactful moment.
Yeah, of the mother being quite literally impacted.
What a horrific, like, could you imagine being her? Like,
Oh, jeez.
and having to witness that and live through that.
You're
Like,
living in Notre Dame. It's still standing by that point, and then next minute, like someone like just commits suicide and lands on your mother. You're just like, oh, have you seen In Bruges?
yes.
Oh Christ! It's,
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's not that far from Mad Eye falling, is it? Just like,
Yeah, dude, that's the that what a moment that's a great movie, In Bruges. We're talking about all these other movies as well. In Bruges is so good, dude.
that's so bloody good.
The whole scene, like I think my favorite scene in that film is the one. Actually, Ralph Fiennes is awesome in that movie, first of all. But one of my favorite scenes in that movie is the one where Mad Eye,
Brendan Gleeson,
Brendan Gleeson, is been ordered to take out Colin Farrell, and he's coming up behind him basically at the park, and then it's just like the Colin's gonna commit suicide and like pulls the gun to his head, and then Brendan still stops him from committing suicide, even though he's ordered to kill one of his mates.
Yeah.
And they have this weird scene where it's like, wait, were you gonna assassinate me? Wait, were you gonna kill yourself? And they're like, which one's worse? And it's such a good scene. That movie is so freaking good, man.
That's a good
Everyone
movie,
watching
man.
Bruges. It's awesome.
Watching Bruges,
Yeah.
it's way better than Amélie, and it's like, I kind of wish there was a moment though Amélie had that. Just like, I can imagine Amélie being on the roof and she's like, "Are you gonna jump?" And the guy's like, "Oh," like I can so see Amélie being in that kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, just in terms of screenplay for In Bruges as well, it's so intelligent, how it sets things up. Say with the dwarf dude, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the kid that's sorry, spoilers for In Bruges, but at the start with he accidentally kills the altar boy or whatever, and then that unlocks Ray finds this whole thing of you can't kill a child no matter what, it's the worst crime you can do. And at the end where he thinks he's killed the child, but he's actually shot the dwarf, and then he kills himself in the moment, and you're like, this is so fucked up, but it's really intelligent and well put together. And
it is, because it feels almost Cohen in the way that it's just a bunch of people just fucking up from really easy mistakes that they just could have avoided.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Martin McDonagh, what a writer. What a
he's
guy.
so bloody good. I'm still livid that bloody Ebbing didn't win Best Picture. I tell you what.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't think it was Best Picture for me. I think it was Best Screenplay. It didn't even win Best Screenplay, did it?
No, it
won
didn't.
Get Out one, didn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah, that was the
yeah.
Get Out one.
God,
Yeah.
Francis was so good in that.
Yeah, she was. She was awesome. Sam Rockwell was great. Woody Harrelson was awesome.
I know.
Everyone was great in that movie.
So good, man. We're just about better films than Amélie, but
I know.
But there's some good moments in this movie. I like the scene where she helped the blind man, cross the road and then proceeded to take him through half of fucking Paris. That was
Here's
fun.
the thing though, dude. That was one of the scenes I was like, do we need this? Really?
Yeah, it was there's a lot of inconsequential
It was
shit in
nice.
this
It
movie.
was sweet.
But that's kind of the movie in general. Did we need this?
Yeah, because honestly, that whole dude that receives the box, right? That she finds ridiculously when
I thought it
Princess
was going to segue to Jumanji at one point. She'd hear the beating of the drums in the wall. She just pulls out the board game. Robin Williams jumps out. It'd be
But
great.
it's so stupid. She sees the news that Princess Diana has passed away.
Yes, which is a reoccurring motif.
She drops an item and it rolls across the floor, and it somehow has the force to dislodge a tile that's been embedded in a wall for years, right? That's granted already.
This
loose.
movie's openly surrealist though. It's not trying to be real.
Yeah, she finds this secret little hole that's got this box in it, right? It's got all this childhood shit in it from this guy. She does some investigating, goes to a neighbor who's the painter, and then finds out some information, finds the dude who owned this box as a child, and gets it into his possession again, and he has this real emotional moment and decides to reconnect with his family, and it's a beautiful moment, and it was really impactful, and I was like, that was awesome. That was really fulfilling.
Apparently there's a lot of payphones around Paris in the late 90s.
But then my point is that is that it sets her on this kind of
This quest.
yeah, exactly, to do good and to to be a good person.
She becomes the Superman.
But nothing ever lives up to that first thing she does.
No, this probably is the best thing that she does at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And I love at the end of the movie how you see kind of this is one of my other favorite moments is the montage of kind of, all the good she's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see that dude reconnecting with his family, and I was like, oh man, that's awesome. And then I realized I was more invested in him than I was in almost every other character in the movie. I love Amélie, don't get me wrong, but I mean all the other side stuff that's going on. That was the best one, and it was the first one.
I did like her shenanigans, how she made the really annoying fruit shopkeeper Mrs. Schiff, the diabolical fucking up his house completely. I kind of got around that because I'm you're evil. That's some neck level shit, changing his door handles and that kind of stuff. But outside that, I just hated the subplot with the cafe woman and like the guy who was creepily got the audio tape. I'm like, I don't want any of this. Like, it's just and when they finally have sex and it's the loudest sex at the cafe, I'm like, they're always about to knock over all the bloody cups and like.
Yeah, man, I'm totally there with you. That was my least favorite one. The romance in the cafe was just when she's like trying to set him up or whatever, and isn't she like a hypochondriac or something? And it's like, and then I just like he was just a bit of a dick as well. Like I was like, oh. And so like I just didn't really care for them as a couple. And then it's like, oh, she got them together, and you're like, well, awesome. And then we just leave it. We just yeet out of there and move on with our lives. Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, to be honest with you, I feel like Two Hands did what this film was trying to do better. In the sense of like, we kind of got this vignette on a city and we see all these different kind of plots kind of interweave with each other. And like, we kind of see how these characters are trying to find something for themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Could you imagine though if Emily's on the Two Hands tangent, if Emily's like dead mother was like a ghost that was always like narrating the story and being like, hey guys, you know, like Emily's doing this now, but you know, she really probably shouldn't be. But here we are. I'm her dead mum, by the way. And you're like, oh God. Still, like, dude, that. Two Hands did a number on me of like, that brother was like the worst. The worst idea. Whoever came up with that, you know, should have been fired and that should have been cut out. It was just terrible.
It was horrendous, man. Like, but in saying that, like, Two Hands is a movie kind of like that, you know, gives us vignette on the city through these quirky characters. So like, I could see what it's trying to do.
I totally agree. I think it's a great point.
Do you love that the Spooky Doo coaster is in this movie?
Yes, I do. I do love it. And I wish I could ride the Scooby-Doo coaster right now, in fact.
Now, Brenton, how would you react if you were riding a roller coaster, then suddenly one of the staff members dressed in a little skeleton outfit suddenly wrapped their bodies around you and started spooking you? How would you react as a tourist on this roller coaster?
It depends on the age. I think if I was a child, I would be absolutely terrified. If I was myself right here and now and it happened, I was on the roller coaster and it was happening, I think I'd just be like quite concerned for their safety, to be honest. Like
waiting for that one guy who rides the roller coaster who's just going to punch him in the face the second he gets touched.
No, sit down and buckle up. Like, you're going to hurt yourself.
Oh, jeez. I was watching that going like, that's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. I don't know. There are good moments in this movie though, Brenton. Like, you know what? I didn't think I was invested in the boyfriend until the end. I was really invested in the boyfriend. I'm like, you know what?
When did you become invested?
Right at the end, where the old French guy with the camera who's just fucking about the whole movie, he leaves a weird ass message on like Amelie's like shitty television being like, Amelie, don't fuck this up. You've been fucking it up the whole movie. I've been trying to paint the whole movie and you've just been fucking it up. Tell him you love him. And she's like, okay, television. And so she like walks up to the door and the guy like, it's a very rom-com in a way. The guy never left. He's there at the door waiting. It's so cliche almost.
Yeah.
And they have what I would argue to be probably one of the most romantic kisses in a movie. A very beautiful kind of soft kind of peck on the cheek. Like, it's very sweet.
I'm going to talk about that scene a little later on.
Ooh, okay.
Just so you know, it's going to come up again.
I'm very excited.
Yes, very personal moment between the two of them. But then Nathan, this is the other, I've got a note here that has to talk about, I just have to talk about this. Like, the very end of the movie, we get the montage, and then we get this scene where they're fucking riding a bike together. She's on the back of it. There's no helmets involved.
That's right.
There's no helmets involved, like at
God.
all. And I hate this in movies. Like, fucking safety first, you know? Like, holy shit. Like, they're whizzing down.
They would be murdered on the Arc de Triomphe roundabout. Oh, I tell you what.
And here's the worst part. During like all this fun, like, oh, we're so romantic and I'm in a relationship now, she starts like covering his eyes when he's trying to ride the fucking
Oh my
bike.
God.
I'm sorry. I don't care if you're my significant other. If I'm riding down the hillside on a fucking bike going at, I don't know, 40 k's an hour and you cover my eyes, I am pushing you off and you can like fall on the ground and like, seriously, what the heck is wrong with you?
Man.
Like, I get it's meant to be fun and oh, ha ha ha. That's not funny.
Like, that is a
That is
hazard.
a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Oh, there's just so many lawsuits in this movie, Brenton. But you're right. Like, to be honest with you, like, watching that, I think it would have been really funny if they just suddenly crashed and died and that's how the movie ended. just like, you think it's going this real hopeful direction and then the film just becomes really nihilist. Like, oh, we all fuck up eventually. Like, oh.
We're all gonna die someday. And then Amélie, roll credits. Yeah,
you're right. They're like, these characters are very foolish for a lot of the movie, but like, you shouldn't be posting photos of yourself around Paris from a photo booth. That's just asking for attention you don't need.
But Nathan, like you said, at the same time, there are some great moments in this movie.
There are.
So it balances itself out. It's perfectly balanced.
It's like this podcast. There are some good moments.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's some moments that are definitely
You're just shouting lawsuit, waiting to happen. Special segments.
Special segment. Ooh, so special.
I said I was going to talk about this scene later on in the show.
And here we are.
Let's talk about which character was the most crazy in this movie.
Oh,
So
I love the segment.
we're bringing it back.
Yeah.
We're bringing it back. And this is a tough one because there's a lot of crazy characters in this film.
Aren't there?
But for me, you were like, oh, what a romantic scene when they started kissing each other. And I agree. When there was that sensual moment and it was just like this beautiful romantic
It
little
was
like
perfect.
pecks on
It
the
was so
cheeks. Like,
lovely.
but it got weird, dude.
Oh,
It got
didn't
pretty
it?
crazy when he started kissing like the inside of like her eyelid section basically, and there were like kisses in parts and I think it was I was just like, this is getting weird now, you know what I mean? And like I get their connections meant to be a bit off like left
They're
of
both,
center, but
left of center souls, finding harmony, all that.
but I was like, if anyone else was like just like watching this on the street, right, and you saw someone kiss someone like that, you would think they were absolutely nuts. Like
You'd be like, come on.
let's not beat around the bush. And so I actually was like inspired to go on YouTube and to look up this scene.
Oh,
right?
goodness.
And to just look through the comments to what
Oh,
people said.
perfect.
And it varied. It was all over the place.
Oh, really?
Kind of like a review for this film. Yeah, it was like people being like, there was like this really, I wrote it down, there was like this romantic one being like, oh, like, you know, I can imagine that in years' time that like this will become like a staple of their relationship. Like when they make love, they'll always
Jesus.
remember like this kiss. It's like a really romantic part of their relationship, and it's something that only they do as a couple. And like maybe one, and this is what the comment says, one day one of them will die first, and like the other one, that will be their farewell to them. And I was like, holy shit.
Jesus Christ. Right here.
That's really romantic, and it's brought out those feelings in you. And then,
Right.
okay, then there's this other comment that juxtaposed it completely and being like, this was some kinky, weird shit.
It would be so funny if that was a direct response to the other one. Like, oh, that would just be perfect, man. That's also the internet in a nutshell. This is romantic. No, it's kinky.
Exactly. It's so funny. It just made me laugh. I was like, I gotta see what other people think about this scene because like I'm undecided, you know. Like on the one hand, it starts off really romantic and then it gets really weird. And I guess that kind of sums up Amélie.
It doesn't.
But Nathan,
though?
who in your opinion was the craziest character in this
Oh,
film?
there's so many crazy ones, man. Like, I almost thought, like, speaking of the kissing scene, I thought the young guy who was, like, filming it, like, from the other window.
Yeah.
I thought there's definitely something off about him. I liked it, honestly, out of all there's so many crazy characters in this movie. Like, the most normal was easily her father, I think, out of all of them. But, like, I like to think it's probably the shopkeeper. The fruit shopkeeper. Because, like, what fucking idiot would, like, see his door handles change and then just go, like, shrug. And then just, like, walk into his bathroom and just continue to go through the fuck-uppery that he does. Twice as well, may I point out. Like, absolute idiot.
But I guess, Nathan, like, do you notice your door, I guess, like, your door handles, like if your handle has been changed to a knob, you'd notice it.
Yes.
Right? But
yes.
if it's just another handle that looks, you know, like maybe you don't notice that.
Look, I think my housemates were doing some like weird shit, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like I've seen weirder things happen in the house, but like at the end of the day, I'd still ask a question. You know what I mean? It's like
that's exactly right. If you note something like that, you're still going to go, this is odd, and I don't know if I'd follow through with it. I do agree with that.
Also, I have like minor OCD when it comes to like my things in like a shared house. So like I will know, for example, if like, because I perfectly lay out my things, I will know in the bathroom if someone's moved something. Like I will tell if someone's like slightly altered my toothbrush or like, you know, the soap's been used. It's like, and not in an anal way, I share my shit, but like at the end of the day, I'll just know. So I'll be aware. If I feel like if Amélie, you know, she wanted to Macaulay Culkin and, you know, try and get me out of my own home, I feel like I would be aware of the antics she was trying to pull.
Totally. And I feel like that's a healthy way to be, Nathan. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, oh, like something's changed in my house. Like I should probably note that, right?
Yeah, man. The feng shui is off.
Otherwise you'll end up like this guy.
Exactly. Sleeping on a pile of cabbages.
Hey, Nathan, going on to another special segment.
Oh, yes.
Which two characters should have kissed in this film?
Oh, now there's a lot of good candidates for this one, Brenton. Have you got one up your sleeve?
I do, but I'd
good.
like to hear yours first because I went first last time. So.
Right, okay. Honestly, out of all the characters that should have kissed, because there's a lot of romance going on in this movie, I kind of wish that when like the man got his childhood box back in the phone booth and he kind of like holds up all his little trinkets, I was kind of hoping for a little bit of smooch action there. Seeing him kiss his box and, you know, just be like reconnected with his childhood possession. And then when he goes to the bar and he's like, oh, I must have a guardian angel. I was kind of waiting for like Amélie just to walk over him and then like smack him on the lips herself.
Whoa, that would have certainly been a moment. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah.
And he probably would have been like, "Who the heck are you?" And should have been like, "I'm your angel."
And that's how you meet people in Paris.
Good times. In my opinion, and we'll talk more about this relationship obviously later in the show as well. In fact, in the next segment after this one, which might be a good segue, but I'll talk about it now. The father with his gnomes. I just wanted to see a good, like, a bit of tongue there. You know what I mean? Just get in there, get dirty, get saucy. Because that was such a strong relationship, a strong bond right there. You know what I mean?
Oh, mate.
I just wanted to see it fulfilled, to its full potential.
I completely agree, man. I don't think there's enough kissing gnome action in movies. That's why my favorite film is Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, yuck. Yuck. I've never seen that movie and I probably never will. Unless you make me review it for the show in 18 years time, I want to say.
We will never do that, Brenton, as long as we live.
Well, speaking of gnomes, shall we see what stills this movie?
It's blinding.
What stills this movie is that segment on the show where Nathan or myself or both of us together pick a still, a single frame from the film we are reviewing, and we pick that on the basis of it most of the time being funny, but it could also be a great piece of cinematography. Those stills get put in our social links, which are below.
The still for this week, listeners, it's the stupidest thing in this movie, and this really is saying something. This is where the film gets the most surrealist, because obviously there's no logical way of explaining this, but there's a subplot in this movie where the gnome belonging, it's Amélie's father's gnome, right?
Yes.
The gnome that he has, the garden gnome, because the father never traveled, he wanted to travel with his wife. It's a little bit like Up, actually. It's like Pixar's Up, he wanted to travel with a wife, but then she died. Spoiler alert for Up. Amélie is like, fuck, you gotta see the world, Dad. And he's like, no, fuck you, I'm gonna sit here miserable. So she ends up like sending the gnome
That's
away.
verbatim the dialogue as well. That's exactly what they say. Yep.
Yeah, Academy Award winning screenwriter. Anyway, so the gnome goes off, and the film's just littered with these Polaroids that the gnome takes during its world travels. I don't know how this works, Brenton, but there's a shot in this movie where we see all of them stacked up against a little windowsill, or against one of the paintings that the father has, and we see the gnome at bloody like Angkor Wat, at like New York, at Stonehenge, like at the Taj Mahal, at bloody Athens. It's all over the place, mate.
So Nathan, which is your favorite out of all these travel pics?
Listeners, you really need to look at this still. It's so fucking good. My one out of all the gnomes, I kind of like the one on the bottom right in front of the Kremlin. Because it looks like the gnome's trying to pretend to be one of the towers.
Yeah, he's trying to blend in.
Yeah, it's like no one will notice me. I am but a humble garden gnome. What about you?
For me, it's actually the second from the left on the bottom.
Oh,
the
New
one
York,
with the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Because just think, to take this Polaroid.
How in the first place?
No, he had to stand like on street level. So he's in bustling New York City, right? On street level. He's holding a garden gnome with one hand and a Polaroid camera with the other, pointing it up and trying to get the perfect shot. Like he would have looked absolutely freaking crazy.
But knowing New Yorkers, like no one would have probably batted an eye. Like I'm like, oh yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. But what a funny image.
Oh man, it's just like
I also like that he's managed to get two in New York. So he's got the gnome with the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
Like standing next to it. And the gnome with the Empire State. He must have really loved New York.
Yeah, the gnome got around New York, man. Like this gnome's going places. Like, do you reckon the gnome goes in carry-on? It's like it's got its own seat on the flights.
I think it's in first class, mate.
Do you reckon you can bring a garden gnome onto a flight? Like if I rocked up into carry-on, right, and like I had it in my bag, how would security react? Like, do you reckon it's allowed?
I think it's allowed. I just think...
And yes, that is the weirdest thing I've said on this show so far.
I actually don't think it would be questioned, though. Like, I think they'd just be like, oh, well, whatever.
I think it would raise eyebrows at the very least.
I think it would raise eyebrows, but I don't think they can stop you. I mean, like,
Could you use it as a weapon? Like, would the tip of the hat be too pointy? Do you reckon they'd have to confiscate the gnome?
No, it wouldn't be because the hat's too pointy. It'd be because... But then I guess, like, how do you...
You'd have to throw it. You could maybe smash glass on the plane or something like that. Like,
But if it's under the... But you could say the same thing really about a laptop. Like, you could club someone with a laptop and do some damage.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
You see a terrorist just carry a bloody garden gnome onto a plane, like they'll never see it coming.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, because on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, it'd be quite a hefty object that you could do some damage with. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of other objects that you bring on carry-on that could do just as much damage. So I don't know, dude.
How much money would I have to pay you to bring a garden gnome onto your next flight from like Sydney to like Brisbane or something?
Not much.
You'd practically do it for free. But knowing like the Australian customs people, they'd be like, what are you doing with your garden gnome? And you'd be like, oh, just delivering it to me mum. They'd be like, yeah, fair dinkum. They'd probably just let you cross anyway.
Oh, yeah, I did the same thing 2 weeks ago, mate. There you go.
We get 10 bloody gnomes a day. It's like
Oh, that's a nice one, mate.
there's like all the confiscated like shampoos and like toothpastes. There's like a little box full of gnomes just like next to it.
Too good. Too good. Well,
Hey,
should we look at this film's poster?
finally.
Blanton,
Yes,
let's look at this film's poster.
but is it art?
Oh, so this is it. This is the poster that was on the French classroom for like 9 years.
And also like everywhere, man. This poster, it must be one of
Yeah.
the most like replicated posters because it is everywhere.
So on the one hand, there's that, right? What an amazing poster in the sense of like it's managed to capture.
I mean, with the expression Amélie pulls, how could you not be captured? Like,
Yeah, I mean, like it's captured the interest of so many, so that we this poster is stuck out in our minds at least.
yeah.
But dude, here's my question for you. This is what I wanted to ask you at the start of the show. When you saw this poster, what did you think this movie was? What did you think the genre was? And what did you think it was about?
Dude, I have no clue. This poster gives nothing away because it's just her in this little red like top, just with the green background, like, and it just says like the fabulous life of Amélie Poulain. So like, I presume it looks as though she's up to no good, frankly. It looks as though she's about to stir some shit. It's kind of weird that the movie's about her kind of doing the opposite.
Yeah, totally.
What did you think, man?
This is what I literally thought this movie was when I saw this poster
Right.
for a while. So I was like, oh, it's like a French horror film, right? Or like a French scary movie.
Yes.
And I was like, so Amélie, who is pictured here, is clearly like either a vampire, a witch, or a mix of both. Right? And this movie's gonna be about her like fucking doing some witchy vampire-y shit.
Oh my god.
And going around Paris and just, taking people out left, right, and center. And maybe it'd have like a little bit of a comedic tone as well. Because she looks nuts. Like
She does look
the color
genuinely
grading in
insane.
this makes her skin look so pale.
Jeez.
Like the hair on her looks so black. It looks like a wig, frankly.
Yeah.
And they've made her eyes so dark and her lips so red that of course she looks like one of Edward Cullen's cousins. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, so what if like when they go to the Vatican in like the Twilight series? What if like when what if when they head over there, just amongst all the vampires and robes, there's Amélie ready to stir some shit.
hey man, I think she'd fit right in, to be perfectly honest.
she
Maybe this is the prequel to Twilight,
Could you imagine? Jesus, you know what? Her boyfriend kind of looks a little bit like Ed Cullen.
Hey, you're not wrong. That's true.
It could be the French version of that. I know what you are. Say it. French. I knew it.
But having said all that, Nathan, what I just said of what I initially thought this movie was when I was like a young lad, I think it's a good poster. I think it
does its job,
has
doesn't it?
obviously
Like,
done its job.
yeah.
So yeah,
We can't change it. It's like it's probably half the reason we watched this in the first place, besides the fact how famous this movie is.
exactly.
The poster is striking. Like, there's no way to get around it. Well, title talk.
Ooh, it's the title.
Amélie.
I mean, she was in the movie a fair bit, wasn't she? I mean, if you want to go with the
She
full
certainly
title,
was.
if you want to go with the full title, it's The Fabulous Life of Amélie Poulain, or The Fabulous Destiny of Amélie Poulain. So, like, was it fabulous?
Not really.
No.
I'm just gonna say it.
If I sat
It
down with
wasn't.
Amélie at a cafe and I said, "How's your day?" and like she told me this little story, I'm like, there's a lot of bullshit in here, man. Like, I didn't even know half of this. Like,
Would you say that to her face as well? I don't know. That sounded like a whole lot of bullshit, to be honest.
dude, the amount of close friends I've said that shit to, I am blunt with that. I'd say to Amelie's face, and she'd probably try and hook me up with the shopkeeper. I don't know. So that's Amélie.
Yeah.
She just can't stop helping.
Yeah, she would probably find the love of your life, mate.
Oh, I wish. Oh, I would love to go to Paris and just have Amélie, meet some French girl there. That's literally the dream. I know what Audrey's up to these days, the actress, but she needs to get on it.
What if the title was Amélie the Matchmaker?
Oh, I would love that. And I'd love it if it just like perfectly segued into like Fiddler on the Roof, where like, she's walking around like the streets of Paris. She's like, matchmaker, make me a match. And she's just like shoving people together in Paris. It'd be great.
Hey, Nathan.
Yes.
I just realized we didn't do the Aussie special segment.
Oh, Brenton, look at you with your sharp memory. Well done, buddy. Oh, you got
Cheers, mate. I do my best here on Classic Movie Banter. You know what I mean? That's why I'm listed as co-host on the show. You know what I mean?
Here's a croissant fresh from the oven, mate. Just in time for you. So I'm gonna slide that over the table, and while we're looking at that, we'll shove this in here and now.
Yeah, exactly. So Nathan, here's my question: what suburb in all of Australia would you set like the Amélie equivalent film
Oh my goodness. Okay.
for an Australian audience? Because I know straight off the bat where I'm setting it, but I want to hear your
Well, to
opinion.
answer the pertinent question of this segment, should this be should this, what is it? Like, should this have an Australian remake or whatever it is? Or no, or should this be set in Australia?
Yeah.
Whatever we decide it is. The suburb it should be set in, it has to be in Sydney, right?
Yeah, exactly. It does.
Are you thinking Bondi?
No, I'm not.
Glebe?
No, close, but no.
Oh, bloody Oxford Street. You like King's Cross?
No. No.
Where are you thinking?
That's a good candidate. I'm thinking Newtown, dude. I reckon why not?
Oh,
Just do
yeah, Newtown would be perfect for it. Yeah, true.
I think Newtown or even like Leichhardt or something like that, like Norton Street. But I think Newtown has got it covered. Because you can do like the main strip of Newtown where like all the restaurants and shit are, but you can also do like all the suburban area that's just kind of tucked away behind it. And there's some colourful characters around Newtown as well.
Oh man, yeah. Oh, you could so easily do this in Sydney. I mean, they kind of already have. It's called Two Hands, but like, you know, you could easily do.
Yeah.
But you could easily do like a version of this here. Like, this would be so easy to localize. Like, I'm surprised it hasn't been done. Like, you could easily do it in Sydney. Yeah, I could even see like a Gold Coast version of it, like a little beachy like.
Where would it be? Like Broad Beach? Broadbeach or something like that? I don't know.
I would
like
even love it
Burleigh?
if you started at one end of like the coast and had to go down to the other side. It's just like Amélie like going around and walking down the beach for like 10 kilometers and just like bumping into all these side characters, you know, just trying to help him. Like they call it
Sure,
Amelie's morning walk or something. Like it'd be great.
Yeah, sounds good, dude. I'm all on board for that.
Oh,
Let's Aussie it up.
it's what the people want. And speaking of them,
Good segue, dude. Well done. Pat on the back for
oh,
Nathan.
now
there.
I get the croissant. Let's pass it to the people.
Pass it here.
What?
The power to the people.
So if you guys head on over to the tomato meter, you will see that Amélie has a critical consensus of 89% with an audience score, get this Nathan, an audience score of 95%. They're
Boy.
big numbers, dude.
Boy, that's
high.
high. Yeah, that is high. Not as high as John A. Nesbitt from Old School Reviews, who liked it, Brenton. He gave it a B and said, sometimes it's enough to attend the cinema to escape to another world.
Is he referring to Amelie's Paris as another world?
I think so.
That place exists, dude. like
You can buy flight tickets to there now.
Like it's not another planet we're going to, you know what I mean? This isn't sci-fi. Come on, John.
But it's true. I mean, this is not what the real world. I mean, if you rock up to Paris as a tourist, you're going to get the Amélie experience. But you know, you still get some shit. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Oh, and by the way, this movie made bank. Cost 10 mil to make, made 170. Good on you, French people. You're getting some francs.
Yeah, well done. Keith Phipps from AV Club didn't like it. He gave it a rotten review.
Oh no.
And he says, Amélie contains enough material for a dozen or so charming shorts, but stretched to feature length, the whimsy grows wearisome, and the film delights far less than it seems to desire.
See, he's echoing what we said. It's like a dozen charming shorts. Like, could you see this almost as like a limited series? Could you see like Netflix doing something like this?
Yeah, I could, but I think it would overstay its welcome at the same time. Because just think, like, each of those episodes would be like 40 minutes to an hour long. I don't know if that would work.
It could, but again, I think it would be an issue of pacing again, like the movie itself. And while we're here, Brenton, I do also want to remind our listeners what part of the reason that we're doing this today is because yesterday was the actual 20th anniversary of Amélie. So happy birthday, Amélie. So maybe you will get adapted again sometime soon.
Happy birthday, Amélie. Congratulations.
She's finally a woman of 20. She can meet that Frenchman.
Do you reckon there'll ever be a sequel? Like 20 years in the future?
That'd be interesting. She's just don't walk out of churches. You have to look up every time.
Well, on that note, let's look at...
Jeremy Hellman from MovieMartyT.com didn't like it either, Brenton. 1.5 out of 4 said, the world of Amélie has no politics. It has no issues. It only has an exaggerated sense of quirkiness and a pea green tint that suggests an overblown sense of nostalgia for childhood. Good point. It is childish in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I kind of like that about it. I don't think Jeremy likes the whimsical nostalgia for childhood.
No.
I think he's like...
If you look at his photo, he looks very grumpy.
He looks like he likes that adult lifestyle. He's like, nah, none of that childhood shit. I'm an adult. Young A watched the film and he gave it 5 stars and said, one of the best French films I watched.
Yeah, probably. Maybe. I don't know. It's subjective, I suppose.
Nathan, you disagreed with that statement though, because you named like 4 other French films that are better than this one.
I did. And I will do it again because if you want to get into French cinema, first watch Amour. It's probably the best French film I've seen. It's from 2012. It's about an old couple being in love in Paris, but one of them's, dying because they're old. If you like that, watch an animated film on Netflix. It's called I Lost My Body. It's about a guy who loses his hand and his hand literally just comes to life and starts crying about Paris. It's amazing. And if you want a feel good one, watch The Untouchables. It's about a guy helping out another guy in a wheelchair. So Get around that.
The shame of this whole episode has been that I didn't mention at the start is that there's a fun drinking game that you could play with this episode. It's every time Nathan mentions a more, take a shot. Anyway.
It's because I'm looking for a Brenton. Oh.
Muhammad S. also gave it 5 stars and said, can help with your depression.
Oh, I probably could. I mean, life isn't as shit as Amélie, so, you always look up.
What if you went to a psychiatrist and they said, you know what, I can prescribe you a viewing of Amélie?
Oh, I would be like, I want a refund, man. Like, I know Medicare probably covers this, but I still want my money back.
Medicare covers Amélie. Oh my gosh.
No wonder the taxpayers losing their dollars. Jeffrey S. gave it 5 stars. Oh, you'll like this one, Brenton. Jeffrey S. said, this is one movie that needs to be dubbed in English, with French accents, of course. Fast-moving and beautiful images could be appreciated so much more without the distraction of subtitles. Well, there you bloody go, mate. You're not alone.
Jeffrey S., you said it, mate. Like, that sums up my feelings to a T. Juan Pablo says the character looks like from a horror film, but it's an excellent film.
I mean, again, you're just echoing thoughts of, did you write this comment, Brenton? Are you Juan Pablo? Is that your Spanish alias?
Yeah. You know what my alias is online? Juan.
It's the most like Spanish name you could have come up with as well. Juan Pablo. Like, it's just like 2 Spanish first names. Like, it's definitely fake. I love Sanjeev's comment on YouTube. He said, Willy Wonka goes town. Because you know what? Visually, I could see some parallels with Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka and Amélie. They're not too dissimilar looking, are they?
No, not necessarily. I feel like if it was revealed that she went on to create a candy empire, you know what I mean? Like, it would still make some sort of sense.
Oh, absolutely. I could so see her being the French Willy Wonka. Like, she's just walking about the streets of Paris. Like, she just, like, headbutts the glass elevator. Like, it'd be great.
Or, like, she's, like, she goes right back to old Jean and, like, it's just, like, one day you, like, think she's like, oh, look at this old lady. Oh, she looks so decrepit. She's got a frame. And suddenly she does a little somersault and rolls out of it. It's like, hey, everyone, I'm going to fix your life.
That would be the most horrifying thing, being stuck in a bed with Amélie. Jesus, could you imagine? Just, oh, get me out of here. Oh.
To finish off, Mike Fly commented 3 years ago and said, Roger Ebert said that this is the kind of movie that when you think about it later, you smile. I seriously can't see anyone not absolutely loving this movie.
He must be blind because
come on,
here we are, Brenton. We're not anyone,
here
are we?
We are indeed.
Oh, no.
Here we are indeed. Because, Nathan, that was Amélie.
There she goes. So she's still up to no good.
Well, thank you, Sophie, for that wonderful suggestion for us to watch Amélie. We do appreciate it. And thanks for listening, team.
We did it. We all banded together. We all got through Amélie.
Thank you for listening. And like I said, we said at the start of the show, if you want to email us any more suggestions, feel free to get the email and write in. Please do, because we love to hear what you think. But for now, Nathan, any final thoughts? Any sign-off points you want to make?
I'm enjoying the fact that we've been doing this all on the top of the Eiffel Tower. The tourists have been very forgiving of us, considering we've hogged the viewing spot for over an hour now. So maybe we should let some other tourists get some snapshots of the view.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some pretty dirty looks, which I can't understand why. I mean, I thought this was pretty entertaining, if I'm being honest.
I know. Well, wait a minute. There's a little gnome there, Brenton. He wants us to get a photo of him.
Oh, might as well, hey?
No, Brenton, put the gnome down. Brenton, not near the edge.
Oh, come on.
Brenton.
Come on, please.
Brenton, no,
please.
no.
Harold just wants a photo, Nathan.
He's slipping. Oh no, Brenton.
Oh, no, Harold, no.
Well, at least we got a Polaroid out of this.